What if the person you overlook every day holds the power to change hundreds of lives? What if the most unlikely hero was hiding in plain sight all along? Tonight, I'm going to share an incredible true story that will shatter everything you think you know about who makes a difference in this world. This isn't just another Christmas story. This is a powerful account of how one janitor's courageous phone call saved an entire orphanage from closing and revealed a secret that had been waiting 40 years to be discovered. You'll meet Jorge, the man who cleaned floors while secretly remembering every child's story. You'll witness the moment when everyone else had given up, but he picked up the phone. And you'll discover the astonishing family connection that had been hidden in plain sight, a legacy of love that would provide the solution nobody saw coming. If you've ever felt that your small actions don't matter, or wondered if one person can really make a difference, prepare to have your heart restored. This story will show you how the most powerful changes often begin with the most humble among us, and how a single act of courage can create ripples that transform generations. You know, there's a particular kind of heaviness that settles in a place when hope starts to fade. For the children at Oakwood Orphanage, that weight became palpable as Christmas approached. The director, Mrs. Rodriguez, had called everyone into the common room to deliver news that would crush what little hope remained in their young hearts. Due to severe financial struggle and failed funding, the orphanage would be closing its doors on December 23rd, scattering the children to temporary shelters across the state. The loneliness that already haunted these children now multiplied exponentially, each child retreating into their own private world of abandonment, wondering if anyone in the world cared enough to save their home. Now, let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt that a situation was completely hopeless? That moment when all doors seem to be closing and you can't see a way forward? Here's what I've learned from watching people like Mrs. Rodriguez. Sometimes our deepest despair is actually the preparation for a miracle we can't yet see. This week, try this simple practice. When you face what seems like an impossible situation, write down 3 people who could help, even if you think they can't. You'll be amazed how this shifts your perspective from isolation to community. Among the heartbroken staff was Jorge, the orphanage's janitor for over 20 years. While others saw him as just the man who mopped floors and fixed leaky faucets, Jorge had become the silent guardian of these children's dignity. He knew each child's story, the shy boy who flinched at loud noises, the girl who saved her dessert for siblings she hadn't seen in years, the teenager trying to study despite the chaos around him. As he watched the children pack their meager belongings into trash bags, something in his spirit rebelled against this injustice. His quiet sacrifice of years of underpaid work had been for these children, and he couldn't let their Christmas be another chapter in their story of loss. What nobody at the orphanage knew was that Jorge carried his own family secret, one that had shaped his understanding of lost and found in the most profound way. 30 years earlier, he himself had aged out of the foster system, knowing exactly what it felt like to have nowhere to call home during the holidays. The second chance he'd been given by a kind shop owner who hired him had forever imprinted on his soul the power of unexpected help. As he polished the floors one last time, he made a decision that would either make him the laughingstock of the city or become the answer to these children's prayers. You know, they say that the most powerful forces in the universe often work through the most unlikely people. While the professional fundraisers had given up and the board members had moved on, Jorge spent his lunch break making a list of every business owner, every community leader, every former orphanage resident he'd ever met. His approach wasn't fancy, just a simple notebook filled with names and the specific reasons each person might care. This wasn't about charity for him. It was about reconciliation between what these children deserved and what the world was offering them. His act of kindness wasn't grand or dramatic. It was the persistent belief that one person's voice could still make a difference. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you used your network for something bigger than yourself? We often think our contacts are for business or personal gain, but what if you leverage them for someone else's benefit? This month, try what I call purposeful connecting. Identify one cause you care about and think of 3 people in your network who could help. Then make the introduction. You don't need to be a CEO to create change. You just need to be a bridge between need and resources. That's how community transforms from an idea into a living, breathing safety net. Jorge's first phone call was to Mr. Chun, the owner of the Chinese restaurant where he ate every Friday. For 15 years, they'd exchanged stories about their families and dreams. What Jorge didn't know was that Mr. Chin's own grandfather had been orphaned during wartime, and the story struck a chord deeper than any professional fundraiser could have reached. That single conversation sparked a chain reaction that would prove the power of storytelling when it comes from a place of genuine relationship. Mr. Chun didn't just offer money. He offered his entire restaurant as a fundraising venue and his extensive network of other business owners. By the end of that first day, Jorge had made 23 phone calls from the janitor's closet-turned office, his hands shaking but his voice steady. Each conversation was different. Some people hung up, some listened politely, but a surprising number leaned in. They remembered Jorge, the quiet man who always asked about their families, who remembered their children's names, who had been cleaning their businesses or churches for years without ever asking for anything. His financial struggle had kept him humble, but his consistent integrity had built a reservoir of trust that now became his greatest asset. And as the sun set on what should have been the orphanage's final day, a strange thing happened. Headlights began appearing in the parking lot. You know, there's a moment when hope stops being a concept and becomes something you can physically feel in the air. As cars kept pulling into the orphanage parking lot that evening, the children peered through windows with a mixture of confusion and dawning anticipation. These weren't social workers or government officials. These were restaurant owners, shopkeepers, construction workers, and neighbors. They came carrying not just checks, but food, gifts, and most importantly, the determination to rewrite what everyone thought was inevitable. The loneliness that had plagued the orphanage was being replaced by a powerful sense of community that no amount of money could manufacture. Now, here's a practical thought for you. What would it take for you to be the first car in that parking lot when someone needs help? I'm not talking about writing huge checks, but showing up physically when it matters. This week, identify one local organization or family in crisis and commit to showing up. Bring a meal, offer to help with practical tasks, or just be present. What you'll discover is that your physical presence often does more than financial support because it says you're not alone in a way that transcends money. That's how unexpected help becomes tangible. What unfolded in the orphanage common room that night was nothing short of miraculous. Mr. Chin arrived with his entire kitchen staff and enough food to feed everyone for days. The local contractor who'd once hired Jorge for small jobs brought his crew to assess what repairs the building needed. The hairdresser whose shop Jorge cleaned set up a station to give every child a Christmas haircut. Each person brought not just their resources, but their skills, their time, and their belief that these children deserved better. The anonymous gift of Jorge's phone calls had transformed into a very public demonstration of what happens when ordinary people decide to become someone's second chance. As the night wore on, something beautiful began to happen. The children, who had been withdrawn and fearful, started to emerge from their shells. The teenager who wanted to be a chef helped Mr. Chun in the makeshift kitchen. The quiet boy showed the contractor his drawings of building designs. The dignity that poverty and abandonment had stolen was being gently returned to them, not through pity, but through genuine inclusion in the solution. Mrs. Rodriguez watched through tears as the place that had felt so empty hours before now overflowed with laughter and purpose. But the biggest surprise was yet to come, one that would prove that Jorge's family secret was about to become the orphanage's greatest blessing. You know how sometimes the solution to your biggest problem has been right beside you all along. As the impromptu celebration continued, an elderly woman approached Jorge, her eyes filled with tears of recognition. "I knew your mother," she whispered, placing a trembling hand on his arm. What unfolded next would reveal a family secret so profound that it would change the orphanage's fate forever. Jorge's mother, it turned out, had been a beloved teacher at the very same orphanage 40 years earlier, and the woman speaking to him was a former donor who had never forgotten her legacy of love. Let me ask you something. What hidden connections in your own life might hold keys to solutions you're seeking? We often operate in silos, not realizing that the people we interact with daily might have resources, knowledge, or connections that could change everything if we only shared our struggles. This month, try vulnerable networking. Be honest about one challenge you're facing with 3 people outside your immediate circle. You might be surprised how many people want to help when they understand the real need behind the polite facade. The revelation sparked a memory for several other elderly attendees, who began sharing stories about Jorge's mother, a woman who had dedicated her life to children others had forgotten. They remembered her innovative programs, her relentless advocacy, and the hope she instilled in everyone she touched. What none of them knew was that she had died when Jorge was just 12, leaving him to navigate the foster system alone. Her sacrifice for other people's children had meant her own son grew up without her, a painful irony that had shaped Jorge's entire life. The lost and found nature of this moment, finding his mother's legacy in the place he now served, was almost too much for him to bear. Then came the twist that nobody could have predicted. The elderly woman revealed that Jorge's mother had established a small endowment fund before her death, meant to ensure the orphanage's future. Through administrative errors and staff turnover, the fund had been forgotten, accumulating interest in a dormant account for decades. The financial struggle that threatened to close the orphanage had a solution waiting in plain sight, connected to the very man who mopped its floors. The reconciliation between past and present was now complete, and the act of kindness Jorge had shown these children was about to be multiplied beyond anything he could have imagined. You know, the most powerful inheritances aren't always the ones we receive. Sometimes they're the ones we reactivate through our own choices. The discovery of the dormant endowment fund didn't just solve the immediate crisis. It created a sustainable future that honored Jorge's mother's original vision. The local newspaper got wind of the story, and what began as a family secret revealed became a citywide movement of support. Former orphans came forward with donations, businesses established partnerships, and the community that had gathered in crisis now organized for long-term transformation. The hope that had been dwindling now burned brighter than the Christmas tree in the corner. Now, here's something you can apply to your own life. What legacy are you building with your daily choices? I'm not talking about money or fame, but the quiet impact of consistent care. This week, ask yourself, if someone told my story in 20 years, what would they say mattered most to me? Then live accordingly. Start small. Mentor someone at work, volunteer regularly somewhere that needs your skills, or simply be the person who remembers others' important dates. These seemingly small actions create ripples that outlive us in the most beautiful ways. The Christmas Eve celebration at the orphanage was unlike any in its 100-year history. Instead of closing, they were expanding. Instead of saying goodbye, they were welcoming new partnerships. The children who had packed their belongings now unpacked them with a new sense of permanence. Jorge, who had always worked in the background, found himself at the center of a celebration honoring both his mother's legacy and his own sacrifice. The dignity he had maintained through years of humble work was now recognized as the quiet strength that had saved them all. His second chance at family had come not through blood, but through preserving family for others. As midnight approached and Christmas Day began, something remarkable happened. The children presented Jorge with a handmade book containing their stories and drawings, titled Our Janitor, Our Hero. The loneliness that had defined both Jorge's life and the children's experiences had been replaced by a profound sense of belonging to something larger than themselves. The storytelling that began with one man's phone call had become a community's new narrative, one where nobody gets left behind, where every person has value, and where the most unlikely heroes often hold the most significant power to create change. And the best part? This was only the beginning of their new story together. You know how they say that success has many parents while failure is an orphan? Well, in this case, success had one quiet janitor and the entire community he inspired. In the weeks following Christmas, the orphanage's transformation became a model for other struggling organizations. Jorge's simple act of making that first phone call demonstrated that unexpected help often begins with one person refusing to accept the unacceptable. The financial struggle that had seemed insurmountable was now being studied by social workers as an example of community-based solution finding. The children, once facing another displacement, were now helping design improvements to their home, their dignity restored through participation in creating their own future. Let me ask you something. What's the one phone call you've been hesitating to make? What conversation have you been avoiding because you're afraid of being rejected or looking foolish? This week, I challenge you to make that call or have that conversation, not for yourself, but for someone else who needs an advocate. You'll discover that courage is contagious, Your one brave action might inspire dozens of others, creating a chain reaction of positive change you never could have predicted alone. The most beautiful outcome wasn't the money or the renovations. It was the shift in how everyone saw their own capacity to make a difference. The shy teenagers started a tutoring program for younger children. The local business owners formed a coalition to support other struggling nonprofits. Mrs. Rodriguez developed a program to help aging-out youth transition to independence, inspired by Jorge's own difficult experience. Each person's act of kindness built upon another, creating a sustainable ecosystem of support that would endure long after the Christmas decorations were put away. The lost and found theme had come full circle. What was lost, hope, funding, community, had been found in greater measure than anyone imagined possible. As the new year began, Jorge continued his work at the orphanage, but now with an official title, Legacy Coordinator. His family secret, once a source of pain, had become his greatest qualification for ensuring other children wouldn't experience the loneliness he had known. The reconciliation between his past and present had given him a powerful sense of purpose that transcended job descriptions. And the children, who now understood the power of one person's courage, began their own journeys with a new belief in second chances and the knowledge that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about the people who show up when it matters most, proving that every ending can become a beautiful beginning if we have the courage to make that first phone call. So let me ask you this: who's the Jorge in your world that you've been underestimating? What situation have you accepted as hopeless that might just need one courageous conversation to transform? Here's the powerful truth this story reveals. Your financial struggle doesn't disqualify you from making a difference. Your position in life doesn't determine your capacity for impact. Sometimes the people with the least to give materially have the most to offer where it truly counts. In consistency, in memory, in quiet determination. Now I want you to consider, what's the one phone call you need to make this week? Who needs you to be their unexpected help? What family secret or hidden connection might hold the key to solving a problem in your community? If this story inspired you to look at the people around you with new eyes, if you believe that ordinary people really can create extraordinary change, then do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Why? Because every week we share true stories like this one that prove heroism wears ordinary clothes and miracles begin with small, courageous actions. Your journey toward making a difference starts with one click, and I'll be right here to guide you every step of the way.